Hi, everyone. My name is Clay Robbins, and I lead strategy and development at 0x. We are a decentralized exchange protocol built on top of Ethereum, which means our focus is on building the infrastructure that allows developers to add exchange functionality to any product or service. We started back in August of 2017, focused on things like ERC20 tokens, but have quickly expanded the protocol to include NFTs, both 721 and 1155, and shortly we'll have bundled transactions as well. So yeah, really excited to be here.
Cool.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jamiel. I run a company called Chain House. We are a advisory, education, and studio. We build out applications. I run one of the largest blockchain meetup groups called Blockchain NYC. I teach at Columbia Business School, NYU, and CUNY, graduate level blockchain, AI, and machine learning. And I'm writing the O'Reilly book on Corda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angela Dalton, and I am at Signum Global Advisors, managing partner of technology. I have spent many years analyzing emerging technologies, most recently at Guggenheim, where I spent a lot of time in media. I was the esports analyst, video games, got into blockchain, of course, and crypto from there. And so I'm kind of crazy about the intersection of the future of entertainment, video games, and tech.
Cool. So one thing that we're talking about user experience and infrastructure that helps build these great experiences. We had a discussion backstage that oftentimes user experience, we're talking about the end user and what it's like to use the product that you're building. But I still think we're in this very sort of nascent stage where a lot of the efforts that we need to put in are around the developer user experience. And so I don't know, maybe Clay, you can talk to how that's something that's important at 0x.
Yeah, so for us, again, the goal for 0x is to make it as easy as possible for folks to add exchange functionality to their product. And so what we do to try to achieve that is really have a core focus on documentation as well as developer support. So we have a couple of folks that are just focused purely on integration and ecosystem engineering. So it really helps to lower the barrier to entry. Even though we think we provide really simple tools that are easy to access and use, we still have that one-to-one support that allows folks to get over the threshold. And hopefully over time, as we, again, have that tight feedback loop with developers, we can improve that experience to the point that you don't need a human touch to get there.
Cool. And Jamiel, do you want to give a little bit of background about, because we talked also on kind of what you're working on and where that experience is?
Yeah, so we're spending a lot of time in the enterprise space, and we're looking at enterprise tokens, and the JP Morgan token is an example of an enterprise token, which is basically a token that sits between, is basically a B2B type of token. We're spending a lot of time in that space. Whether it's fungible or non-fungible, there are use cases for both. And the developer experience there and the user experience there is still raw and emerging. I think that we're going to see a lot more traction this year around that. People are getting their heads around how do I tokenize internally within an organization, and then how do I slap on an experience such that my internal personnel can interact with this token and potentially, let's say, do certain things with the token, like redeem it and so on and so forth. I think that's going to be emerging, and it's an important use case. Right now, even tokenization on a DLT like Fabric or Corda is still in its early stages, and I think we'll see more of that later this year.
Very cool. Angela?
Sure. So I, about a year ago, started meeting with projects, companies, public companies, large investors. I should have said before that our clients are large institutional investors. And I was really excited about finding the most exciting NFT company. And I realized about a year ago it was a little early. And I just wrote a Medium post because I do think that I am seeing some really interesting developments, most recently in the space, faster underlying layer 1 protocols, new platforms that are evolving, that are emerging, which are, there's one called D-Goods, which was just announced in January from Mythical Games, because I think that people buy entertainment. They don't buy blockchains. And I think, and it's been mentioned several times today, that the user experience has to be about gaming and entertainment and not about the technology. And so I think that we're starting to see some of these platforms emerge that that are really exciting because there are platforms that I mentioned Mythical that is D-Goods has I think 11 partners out of the gate, and they've got the top 3 wallets in China. That's the kind of thing that you're going to need to see, and you're also going to need to see a big game that is kind of a traditional gaming game, not a blockchain game. So I'm really excited about kind of the most recent things that we're seeing.
Very cool. And I guess this is kind of an open question, whoever wants to take it. What do you think are, if we had this ideal experience for games being like normal games, but enabling new experiences that the blockchain provides, what do you think are some of the hurdles left that we haven't seen yet? Or do you think that all the pieces are there for a developer to make something mainstream today, or do you think we're missing anything from an experience perspective?
You mean like games on Ethereum?
Sure.
I think we have bigger problems than UX. If we want to have games on Ethereum, so I think that there's some underlying plumbing issues that probably have to get resolved. But I think they will over the next couple of years, and I think the user X will kind of evolve after that.
Right, and you're kind of alluding to like if a game was purely built on Ethereum.
Correct. Well, I mean, if it's let's say the scoring stored on Ethereum,
right,
and if you have mass adoption, then you have some potential issues, right?
Gotcha.
The other thing that I would add to that, though, is even side chains, I think, are an issue, and Plasma. There are solutions to Ethereum, but I feel that there's many instances in tech in history where when you start with the thing that doesn't work properly, it's not the right thing to start with.
Right.
So that's why I mentioned these faster blockchains.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is that, while at the layer 1 level, especially with Ethereum, there are things that need to be solved. I think that you don't need an ETH 2.0 to roll out to necessarily hit the scalability that we need to see it, because there are solutions that are coming online, like zero-knowledge proofs, that can allow for orders of magnitude greater scalability that could support something like a game. So I think that that's one thing, but I think the other thing is portability across applications. So that's why I'm really excited about the work that you guys are doing at Bitsky, because it's something that at 0x we always ask ourselves, hey, how far up the stack can we build? And at the end of the day, we're not going to build a custody solution. So one that allows for interoperability across multiple platforms and allows users to access those assets and use them in multiple games, like that to me is sort of the magical thing about NFTs.
Very cool. And actually, so you mentioned something I meant to ask. So, and I'll ask Clay specifically, but feel free to chime in. How do you decide where you draw the bounds of what piece of infrastructure 0x is building? Yeah,
so for us, we're really focused on sort of what do we implement at the lower levels that bubbles up to the end user experience. So an example I shared backstage was that when you first came to a 0x relayer and you were going to execute a trade, there's 3 steps that you had to take. You had to first set allowances, then you had to wrap your ether in order to exchange it, and then you actually had to complete the exchange. So you think about drop off in the user acquisition funnel, that's not a pretty picture. And so something that we did at the protocol level was we built something called the forwarding contract that allows you to coalesce those 3 steps into a single step, which again lowers the barrier to entry for users. So when we think about how far up the stack we build, we first listen for feedback and from our relayers and marketplaces, what are the problems that they're facing today, and then think about what solutions do we need to build at the lower levels that will bubble up and improve that user experience.
Gotcha. And I guess from the enterprise perspective, how, I guess, and maybe this kind of still applies to the experience, but how is blockchain being rolled out, and where do people see the most value, and how do you decide where to end that? How are you trying to think about integrating blockchain into a lot of these enterprise applications?
So I think the most value let me just not say most value, let me say the low-hanging fruit is cost reduction. And that cost reduction is because I can reconcile things quicker, whether I do it through tokens or I do it through agreements of contracts moving around that are signed off and circulating across different parties. The low-hanging fruit is, and it's a significant cost reduction. Globally, reconciliation is this kind of dark, underlying, dirty secret in terms of huge costs. If you're familiar with the equities market and you're familiar with trade breaks and trade settlement, we're still at T+2 today because all of it is paper, even though trading is digital and electronic. So there's that. The reason it's T+2, meaning the day of the trade and it settles 2 days later, is because of reconciliation issues. In a market where equities, where there's an enormous amount of money being spent on technology, and we still have this problem of reconciliation between different parties. You said I've traded at 1,000 shares of IBM, but I see 900 shares on my side. That problem permeates all businesses and is going to be solved through this kind of DLT thing. And the JP Morgan is one step, the JP Morgan coin is one step towards that. They're basically solving a bean counting reconciliation problem, which is how many beans do you have, how many beans did I give you, and let's just net them out.
Very cool.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Angela, I'm interested to get your perspective on sort of the institutional investor take on experiences. When they're looking at different products and services and opportunities, what are the questions that they're asking about experiences?
They're asking about concurrent viewers. Everybody knows that viewership has dropped dramatically for traditional TV. Ratings have plummeted. The Super Bowl had the worst viewership and ratings in history, I guess. And yet the Super Bowl ads continue to go up because there's just a lack of audience in one place. And so the value of those finite experiences, I think, keeps going up. So I think people are looking for that. And I think that another indication of this is that they ask about is where are the brand dollars going? Because you can see digital dollars, every CMO has their digital dollar bucket, and it's going to Facebook and Google for social and search, and it's going to these other, places, but it's really not going to branding. And I was really excited about the Marshmello concert. I don't know if we talked about that, but I just thought it was amazing that, first of all, I just thought it was cool. I watched it, and my kids thought I was crazy, but there were 10 million people at the same time watching this concert. And a day later was the Super Bowl. Only 2 million people. The head of NBC News was raving about the viewership of the Super Bowl online, and it was 2.1 million. For a second, it touched 3 million online.
Wow.
So 10 million people got together at the same time to watch Marshmello concert. So that music. The other thing that I'm excited about is this colliding worlds, and a lot of investors ask about that. So music and video games are a big overlap, and so I think that's something else people are watching.
Cool. Well, I think we're about out of time. I don't know if anyone in the audience has a question, or if there's any last words that anyone would like to add.
Yeah, nothing terribly insightful to share. I mean, I will admit, I've played Fortnite a couple times, but it took me a while to figure out that it was a place for people to actually hang out, and that this immersive experience was really the game, not the battle royale, which was a new learning for me, and maybe it dates me a little bit, which is a little scary to admit. But yeah, I think that those immersive experiences and ones around things like fan engagement are some of the green fields that this technology represents. So I'm excited to see how that proliferates in the future.
Cool. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.